Today's class is a restorative yoga class for depression. Okay, for today's class, you're going to need all of your props. So you're going to need a blanket on top of your mat just for extra cushioning because we spend a lot of time on the ground. You're going to need a bolster, a blanket, 2 blocks, a eye pillow if you have one. You may need a strap as well. So today's class is a request from one of my members in the membership community. A few weeks ago, maybe almost a month ago now, I had them fill out a survey and ask them what kind of content they'd like to see coming up in our community. And one of the requests was for a restorative yoga class for depression. I decided to make it available here on YouTube so that it would be available to as many people as possible. And also I think that if you are experiencing depression, you're less likely to be involved in a community. You're probably more likely to be more insular. So I just wanted the friction or the barrier to entry to be lower. So that's why I've made it available on YouTube. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Melissa. And I feel very honored to be able to offer this class on depression today. I've had actually a large number of people in my family suffer from depression. So I know firsthand how depression can really dim the light of just exceptional people in my life. And it's really painful to watch that. I've experienced situational depression for short periods in my life. But I've watched other people that I love deeply go through depression for long periods in their life, and it's a really painful thing to experience and witness. If you're a returning student, thank you so much for joining us, and my wish is that this class will be of benefit for many. So we're going to start with something called constructive rest, but we're going to do it with props today. So let's set up our props. For this, you're going to take 2 blocks on their lowest, most stable setting, and then you're going to put your bolster on top of that, and then you're going to roll up your blanket on top of that. I think I'm going to open that up. So we've built ourselves a nice little prop there. And then you're going to put your knees over the whole thing. Rest back, and you can put your eye pillow over your eyes. So give yourself a little extra time to make yourself comfortable. You might want to pull a blanket up over top of you too if it's cool in your room. And you can put an eye pillow over your eyes. And just take some time in a restorative yoga class. You're going to really feel into the support of the props. So feel into the support behind your knees, under your legs, and also the support of the earth underneath you here as well. And the support of the earth under your pelvis, your rib cage, your shoulders. And I would also say here, because we're face up to start, that it would be nice for you to have your hands on your belly for some extra grounding. And then the effort or work or your job, so to speak, in a restorative yoga class is to seek out the tension in your body, whether that be mental tension, and we'll speak about that a little bit more later, or physical tension, and allow that to just continually release down into the props and down into the earth. So I want to start by saying that this restorative yoga class for depression, I see it as part of your overall healing network, including a medical doctor, a psychiatrist, therapy, and perhaps other complementary medicines such as nutrition, naturopathic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, other forms of bodywork, maybe rolfing, massage, and osteopathy, or whatever forms of energy healing work that you may seek out on your healing journey. So this is just one aspect of healing that you may seek out on your healing path and your healing journey of depression. But it's all important. You need a very strong support network when you're dealing with depression. So gentle backbending postures and inversions, I think, are quite supportive for depression. But the key word here is gentle. And they can open us up and help us look at our lives from a different perspective. So the gentle backbends will open us up, and the gentle inversions will allow us to see things from a different perspective. And I'll speak more about both these things through the class. But with depression, the mind tends to have a very strong negativity bias and very judgmental bias, inwardly judgmental bias. And so the turning things upside down can shift that perspective a little bit. But forcing our bodies to open and forcing our perspective to change too drastically will only activate our nervous system and cause it to contract and close. And forcing open and extreme inversions will create muscular tension and put your nervous system into overdrive. So instead, with restorative yoga in this class, we're going to only just suggest opening and suggest turning things upside down gently, looking at things from a different perspective by inverting without forcing. So the idea is to relax, to calm the nervous system, and to open and relax and just invert just a little. So we're going to trust the wisdom of the body and the way that it has already depressed the nervous system. So when depression is causing constant sadness for no apparent reason, feelings of worthiness, excessive guilt, dark thoughts, loss of interest and pleasure in your favorite activities, low energy, difficulty sleeping, loss of interest in food or eating food that isn't necessarily nourishing to self-soothe, restlessness and difficulty making decisions and focusing. All of these things can be what you're experiencing, and then it can be incredibly difficult to see depression as anything other than a problem to escape. Okay, from here, you're going to very gently release this pose from your body, moving slowly between poses. And we're going to set up our props for our next pose. So a big part of restorative yoga is setting up our props, and we can do this as if caring for our own well-being is the most important thing in our lives right now. One of the things for depression is that there's a lot of harshness and judgment that's directed inwards. And so part of the setting up the props can be a way of really caring for ourselves with gentleness and compassion, not something that we rush through. It can be part of the experience of the class. So the next pose is one of my favorite restorative yoga poses. It's a downward facing back bend. It's restorative locust. So you'll need your blocks at the top of your mat. But first thing to set up is a bolster at the base of your mat, and it goes further down the base of your mat than you think. You could either put a rolled up blanket, or I tend to use my meditation cushion at the base. You kind of want that to be lifted on an angle. Let's see. That's better. I like that. It might be too high. We'll see. And then at the top of your mat, you want your blocks. Those are going to go underneath your shoulders. And then you're going to, I like to use my eye pillow for underneath my forehead, or you could put another blanket there. And then what you do is you place your knees at the base of your bolster. The blocks go underneath your shoulders. And then the eye pillow goes underneath your forehead so that you can rest with your forehead straight down. And take that time to find the perfect position for your blocks so that your shoulders are lifted. This is a nice gentle back bend, and here you're going to breathe into your low back, which are your kidneys and your adrenals, which will also help to support you in restoring your energy, because it can be, when you're dealing with depression, you're also feeling quite listless and there's very low energy. So when I am connecting with students one-on-one and mentoring them one-on-one, the ones who are going through health challenges or injuries or, these long chronic illnesses, sometimes I hear a longing to get back to their old life. And even they'll say, I want to get my old life back. The thing is, when you're going through something like depression or any kind of healing experience like this, the one thing that it might take some time to come to terms with is that there is no old life to retrieve. Whatever health challenge that you're facing, whether it be physical or a mental health challenge, depression, or something else, the beautiful thing about it is that your body, the wisdom of your body, is leading you to something different. So depression, like many other emotional rites of passage, is not something to be avoided. Rather, it can be a rite of passage that leads us through transformation despite the pain and struggle. And if you think back through your life, many of the greatest challenges that you have experienced have most likely led you through transformation. When depression is suffocating us, it can be very difficult to see it as a vehicle of metamorphosis. But, this is probably an overused metaphor, but the caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly without pain. So depression, like other initiations in our lives, they ask us to open our eyes, to be present to the suffering. And initiatory experiences call us to awaken, and they challenge us to the depths of our being. The suffering of the initiatory experience strips away our identity, who we thought we are, oftentimes our dignity, our confidence and comfort, the ways we like to live that we wouldn't normally have given up. And the pain and loss of depression make it difficult to recognize it as awakening. So part of depression is trusting the pain and allowing it to break us open. So keep breathing into your low back, allowing your shoulders to be heavy and the back of your neck to be long. Okay, so we're going to release this pose from our body, and we're going to set up the next pose. Taking the time again, recognizing our own self-worth, that we are worth the time to set up this pose. So for this one, you're going to place your bolster towards the head of your mat. You want to have room for your shoulders and your head at the top of your mat. And then you can, at the base of your mat, put your 2 blocks. And you could either put a second bolster here if you have a second bolster, or you can make a second bolster. So 2 blocks, and I'm going to put my meditation cushion there, or you could put a folded blanket on top of there. And then for this pose, it'll be nice to have your eye pillow for over your eyes again. So you can come into your inner world. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that later too, how to connect in your inner world that is less self-harming and judgmental, because that's definitely a thing with depression. So you want your strap, and you'll want to make a big loop so that we can support your legs here. Okay, so you're going to sit up on the base of the bolster, and your feet will be on the bolster. You can take your strap around your legs or even your ankles, whichever feels more comfortable for you. You're just going to tighten it so that your legs don't fall off this whole contraption. And you're going to lie down so that your shoulders and your head are off the bolster. So this is a nice gentle inversion for you. Okay, shoulders and head are off the bolster. And this allows you to see life from a different perspective, gently. Also opens things up a bit. And you can take your eye pillow, place it on your eyes as well. You could also pull a blanket up over you if you're cool. So there's nothing for you to do. You just allow the shapes and the props and the support underneath you to work its magic on your body. And you can allow your mind to be open and let the teachings unravel and work their magic as well. So I want to say a little bit more about trusting the journey, and especially this initiatory journey, which can be so painful through depression. So in our membership community, I teach courses to our advanced members. I teach 5 element courses where we go through each of the elements in each season, and we combine that with yoga and poetry and time in nature. And I really have a lot of respect for the students that engage in the practices in these courses, because at the beginning of each course, we take some time to talk about how each course is an initiatory journey. So most of my students who go through these courses find the journey quite painful. Each one of them goes through some kind of transformation through engaging in the material in the courses, and it can be painful. Generally, they leave something behind, but they come through change. They come through different. Somehow in their lives they change, and I think generally most of them would agree that they find deeper meaning within themselves. And this is true for me in each one that I teach as well. So what I want to say is that there is wisdom deep in your body that has brought the depression forward as a way to heal. Your body never does anything without a reason. It's always protecting you and looking out for your best interests. So from this perspective, depression is a healthy response to your life. Depression is a healthy response to your life. Depression is your body's healing response to help you get better. To help you get better physically, to help you get better emotionally, to help you get better energetically, to help you heal spiritually. Your body is responding in the most appropriate way to support you in your life right now. And all you have to do, as my colleague and fellow teacher, yoga teacher, Bo Forbes says, is allow your body to do what it already knows how to do. Okay, we're going to slowly release this pose from your body. And probably the best thing to do is to take your feet off the mat, roll to your side, and then push yourself up and release your strap. And then we'll take some care in setting up our next pose. And when I was reflecting on setting up this next pose, I was reminded, a memory came to me of what I want to say in setting up this next pose. We're going to do supported fish pose with a rolled up blanket. And what I want to say about this is that less is more. So all you're going to need is a blanket to set up this pose. And the memory that I had is of receiving a Phoenix Rising yoga therapy session from another colleague and friend, Renee Dumichel, whom Pam, who's watching this live, has also had sessions from. And in that session, Renee gave me an assistant supportive fish pose, which we're going to do now. And all she did was put her fingertips underneath my back like this. So she lifted me just like a tiny, tiny bit. And I had the most huge emotional release that I'd ever had in a session just from that little tiny lift. So less is more. So I'm going to suggest you take your blanket like this, wide, and roll it like as a small a roll as you can. Because see, if I'm starting to go like that, I get quite a big roll. So yeah, just a little roll. And then you're going to place it underneath your back where it's comfortable for you, and trust in the small roll. And we're not going to be in this pose as long. We've been doing 10-minute holds, in case you're wondering. We're going to do a 5-minute hold in this one too. See, that's how, I don't know if you've noticed, but our back bends have been very small. So we want very gentle opening back bends in at Yoga for Depression pose. We don't want to push it with our nervous systems. So you're going to find a spot on your back. And you can put your eye pillow over your eye again. See, when we do really big back bends, we push past the point where we can actually engage in the emotional edge that we're at. And our nervous system just actually shuts off. But when we actually do these smaller back bends, you can feel that there's a real tenderness and potency here. At least that's true for me. You can let me know. So with depression, it's very common to struggle with negative and self-defeating thoughts. Our inner world can be flooded by overwhelming thoughts, sensations, and emotions. And it's very common to be lost in a labyrinth of negativity. And the thing is, when you come to something like yoga or meditation and bodywork, it's not going to eliminate these things. When you quiet down and you start to open your body, what happens is that it illuminates these negative thoughts, these self-defeating thoughts, the overwhelming thoughts, the sensations and the emotions. So oftentimes we come to things like yoga and we think it's going to make everything better. And at first what happens is it's confronting, right? It's not relaxing, it's triggering, it's confronting. So when you relax your body, the emotions that have been stored in your body that you've been holding back will arise. So I want to speak about some of my experience of teaching over the last 20 years that will speak to this. So I teach a style of meditation in our community that brings people deeply into their bodies in a very relaxed way. And of course, when that happens, our body then finally feels free to bring forward what it's been holding on to. And it may have been holding on to it for days, maybe for weeks, maybe for months, and often for years. And one thing that is very difficult to witness is that many students will step away from this practice because for them, it's just too painful and just too challenging to meet the emotions that their body's offering up. And so rather than staying with the release that's coming up for them, they step away from the practice. And this is why it's important that it's not just yoga that you're practicing, but that you have a support network around the yoga, that you have a medical doctor, that you have a psychiatrist, especially if you're dealing with depression, and a therapist, and that medications are brought in when necessary, and that you have, the net can be cast widely, that you have a wide support net. So when we step into these kinds of practices like restorative yoga or meditation, it's important that we honor our body when it speaks, and that sometimes that we can't hold all that by ourselves too, that we need somebody else to help us listen to our body. So I urge you not to override those messages that are coming forward with your mind, because there's a deep wisdom. Your mind is going to want to override your body's wisdom, and comfort can interfere with the wellspring of inner resources that arise when you practice and that have been arising through depression. But I really do want to highlight that when we are going through difficulty, we don't have to go through it alone, and we shouldn't go through it alone. Some challenges that we go through do need to be supported by an expansive team of support. And if it's overwhelming, then we do need to bring in other people to support us. Okay, so bend your knees, roll to your side. We're going to come out of this supported fish pose, and we're going to set ourselves up with the same pose that we started with gentleness and care, that constructive rest pose that we started with again. So let's take some time to build those props. So you're going to need your blocks. So we set them up so we had a nice stable base, and then your bolster, and then we had a nice roll there too. So this time we do want a rather bigger roll. So put that on top. And so for this one, we'll go back to that longer time. And you're going to put your buttocks right up against it. You want your knees right supported by that round roll. Your feet will kind of dangle off the edge. And you'll rest back here. You can put the eye pillow over your eyes here. So when we practice yoga, we can bring the skills of mindfulness and awareness to face our painful thoughts and emotions. And of course, attending to our thoughts and emotions will be unbearable if we're always harshly judging ourselves, or if our inner mean girl is always standing by with her 2 cents worth. This is part of where discipline, which is part of a spiritual practice, can enter the practice, and we can ask ourselves to be strong about being compassionate and non-judgmental in our practice. So gently we can ask ourselves to stop judging ourselves. We can stop beating ourselves up, and we can turn with kindness to our inner mean girl and offer her some kindness and tenderness. And maybe give her an alternative. We can, each time she's mean with us, we can, give her something else to do. It's like, when those of you who have children, when your toddlers are acting up, you redirect their attention. And so it can be the same with our inner mean girl. We can redirect their attention and give them something else to do, and choose an alternative, right? So there's a practice in yoga too where we talk about doing the opposite. So when we notice that inner harsh critic coming up, we can choose the opposite. We can choose to treat ourselves with kindness instead. So she can be like a little meditation bell to remind us that we can choose to act differently as well. And this is a practice too. It's not something that's going to come instantly. It's something that you can allow yourself to develop slowly over time. And, that's the thing with depression. It's slow moving, and so is the recovery. So you can be practicing, you can be working with a therapist, a doctor, and medication, and it's something that's not going to happen in a week, a month, a few months. You're going to be practicing for, more likely it's a year, a few years before you find your way out of this, find your way through this healing journey to a different place in your life. And we can have patience for ourselves in this, because this is part of your path and this is part of your karmic unfolding. And you'll look back and you'll see the treasure in it. You'll see that this experience has brought you through something that has brought you great riches in your life, actually. It's taken you on an inner journey that you wouldn't have had without it, even though it was very painful. So I have a poem for you here. This is by a local poet here. His name is Ted Kuser. It's called The Sigh. You lie in your bed and sigh, and the springs deep in the mattress sing out with the same low note, mocking your sadness. It's hard, not the mattress, but life. Life is hard. All along you thought you could trust in your own bed, your own sorrow. You thought you were sleeping alone. You lie in your bed and sigh, and the springs deep in the mattress sing out with the same low note, mocking your sadness. It's hard, not the mattress, but life. Life is hard. All along you thought you could trust in your own bed, your own sorrow. You thought you were sleeping alone. Okay, so you're gradually going to allow your breath to deepen, going to slowly make your way off your props. Bend your knees, roll to your side, make your way up to a seated position, and we'll gather the fruits of our practice into yourself. And then we'll offer them out into the world. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings be happy and free, and may the thoughts, words, and actions of my own life contribute in some way to the happiness and freedom for all. So give yourself a thumbs up for responding with kindness to your body's amazing inner healing wisdom. Give yourself a thumbs up for responding with kindness to your body's amazing inner healing wisdom, and put "I am turning towards myself" with kindness in the comments. Next week, we're starting the Yoga for Perfectionism series. There's a blog on the behind the scenes and the making of the series on my yoga lifestyle channel that you can check out. And I will stay and answer comments and questions that any of you might have for the live stream. But for those of you who are watching the recording, I'm sending you much love from beautiful British Columbia. May your joy be as deep as our ocean. May you be as strong as the old growth trees in our forest. And may you be as strong as our mountains. Om Shanti. Namaste. Okay, today's class is a restorative yoga class for digestion. No, it's not. Becky got that on my mind. I'm going to blame that on Becky. You guys talking about the bakeries and the scooters, you got me all off.